So Dan, we are very grateful for the work that you guys are doing, and we were talking about this in that the application that you've built with your team is excellent, and we are looking forward to doing the best that we can to support it. But there are certain things that we have to talk about before it can become a possibility. In that, when you talk about inflation, when one talks about black producer elections and tokenomics, people, become very hesitant. So
Yeah, really.
yeah, we were discussing that, and we were trying to find ways that we can have a communication amongst ourselves to make sure that we address some of these things so that we can make Fractally a possibility on the EOS network.
All right. Well, I'm here to answer the concerns and whatnot. I know that I've been explaining more how I think this benefits the EOS network recently on Bywire and on Crypto Dunker, if you saw any of that. But I'd be more than happy to directly address the concerns here. Let me talk about, I guess, the parts of the enchilada to go with that analogy. At the heart of Fractally, there's a whole bunch of fractals. Each fractal is a community with its own token. So a token standard that is maintained by the blockchain natively, that is easy to integrate with for various DeFi applications, is a critical component of that. So not just a token standard, but also, I guess, an exchange standard to make it really easy to communicate between things. And those features are not necessarily Fractally specific. These are just general services that I think every blockchain should have. And so they don't depend on Fractally per se. They would be depending upon, I guess, the new account structure or meta account system that we're proposing as part of this. And so that's one aspect of it. And it's probably the easiest of the list of things to address. But that's the one thing that we've asked for funding from the EOS network, which could come either from ENF or from Eden chief delegates. The idea is we wanted to have tokens need some kind of identifier, right? And right now, the way we identify tokens is the combination of an account name and a symbol. And you need all that data to uniquely identify a token. So that's 128 bits of information to identify a token. So everywhere anyone's referencing that, they need to check that 128-bit identifier. So in our new proposed standard, we changed that to a 32-bit identifier, which is 1/4 the size to refer to a token, which means it's very cheap to create an account. You don't have to buy a symbol. You just give me the next identifier. This is how we're going to uniquely identify this token. So now a token balance is a balance in a 32-bit identifier, and that will uniquely identify tokens. So that's a key part of the token standard that we're producing. The other aspect of the token standard is currently the way things operate. Everyone deploys token contract to their own contract. Right? They have the same API, just replicated on a whole bunch of different places. If I'm building a smart contract and I want to interface with various tokens from various parties, how do I know that their contract is actually conforming accurately to the API standard for the token? You don't. You have to trust that everyone implemented it correctly, which is a much bigger burden on every single person that wants to interface to it. So the idea is all tokens are issued and managed by a single contract, which means you can issue a token without having to deploy any code. So while the tokens are managed by that single contract can then enforce inflation limits on the token, so that no matter what a DAO or whatever custom application does, they can change their code however they want. They can't violate the invariance around inflation because that's enforced by the system token contract. But not only that, we've got another problem where every single contract has to basically implement the deposit withdraw process, where you deposit your money to the contract, and when the contract's done, like say it's an exchange or whatnot, they put it in a withdrawal balance, and then you have to withdraw from the contract. And that's because under the old standard, there's a require recipient, which gives the other party the option to have code execute when you send them money, which can allow them to abort the transaction, which can, if you have a multi-party token contract for DeFi or whatnot, it could halt an exchange, it could halt the name auctions. It was just a problematic feature of the require recipient. So everyone's got this deposit withdrawal standard, and they're all replicating the same code everywhere for tracking these balances. The problem is the actual EOS or token, whatever it is stored on the in one big balance for the user and for the smart contract, and they can transfer it all out at once, and all the credits for all of their thousands of users are no longer backed, right? The data still says it's there, but you transferred the money right out from underneath it, which means a single math error, negative number or some permission thing can cause all the people that have credits for the particular contract to lose it all. The proposed standard moves all of that from the individual contracts into the token contract itself. So if you want to send someone money, you can put it into the credit table for them, and then they can withdraw it themselves back into their account without having a notification or any of that, which means contracts are no longer custodian user funds, whereas before they're a temporary custodian until the user actually takes it back. And that's huge from a risk reduction for the user and liability reduction for the smart contract developer. So those are some of the major design goals of the new token standard, solving problems I don't think a lot of people were even aware of, and to facilitate better DeFi. The next aspect of what I was proposing was an NFT standard. Now, this NFT, it's literally a non-fungible token. It's a thing that has an identifier that belongs to someone, and the goal is to change who it belongs to. And NFTs can be all kinds of things. They can be a premium name that hasn't been assigned to an account yet, a premium symbol that hasn't been assigned to a token yet. It can be an actual account that you want to use as collateral in a DeFi application. It can be the issuer permissions on a fungible token. So you can, all these different things can be NFTs, and they can all be used, but we need a way of transferring ownership of a thing, a unique thing, as concisely as possible. And so the NFT standard is that it's not a new art metadata system complete with auction mechanics and all this other stuff like Atomic Hub is offering. It's literally a lightweight, easy way to mint a transferable bundle of rights. It's really more like a utility NFT rather than an art NFT, if you like. And then it uses the same paradigm as the fungible token standard for the credit debit process. I put the sequence diagram for this on the EOS community FAQ that we released on Tuesday. So that was what the NFT standard was. And so you combine the NFT standard with the new name system. So the new name system allows you to attach a longer human readable name to a 32-bit identifier that all link to the 64-bit account name. The reason to do that is now user balances can now be a 32-bit account identifier and a 32-bit token identifier, and they fit in a 64-bit index, and we save RAM all over the place. And all the permissions and everywhere that we need to reference an account, we can reference it with this 32-bit identifier. And all user interfaces would use the pretty name to refer to the account. And then the 64-bit and the 32-bit identifiers are implementation details that the backend leverages, but the UI uses the long names. So the only thing that we're actually asking that needs EOS block producer approval is updating how the name auction, the premium name auctions work to use the new name system, which allows you to just buy a name without having to wait. The price will adjust like proof of work difficulty, but you can always just buy it now, which would greatly simplify the experience of getting premium names and premium symbols. But we want to make sure that there's no redundancy where you can have the same name, a long name and a short name overlap and mean actually two different accounts. So when someone goes to a wallet and they enter a name in the UI, it can only resolve to either an existing EOS account name or a long name, and there'd never be in conflict. So that's a relatively small change to the existing system contract. End result is the existing system contract gets smaller. We remove a lot of code from it, and we distribute it among these other contracts. People that are writing smart contracts dealing with tokens can remove a lot of boilerplate, which gives more space because contract code size is a limiting factor here. You want to get that code out of there. So all those standards combined with, I guess, a bank or exchange, that was another piece where you can create a pair between any two tokens from the system contract, fund some initial liquidity, and anyone can subsidize it. Either the fractals can subsidize the pair, or the EOS network can subsidize liquidity in any particular pair. And because of the new token standard and token identifiers, even the pool tokens, what I call mutual respect, they're just another token. They don't need a symbol attached to them because they got a unique 32-bit token identifier now. So this whole system creates a DeFi platform that's more RAM efficient, more code efficient, and actually more flexible when you consider NFTs in the mix. That I think it can lead to a renaissance in what people build on EOS, because I can build an auction system that allows you to auction an account or auction art or auction permissions on an issuer, auction a symbol, and it's the same code because it's using the same NFT standard. And I can create tokens cheaply because I don't have to deploy whole contracts for them. And I can, everything's composable, and that's the goal. So what Factorly was going to do was build these contracts as a reference contract, build a minimal viable product for actually interacting with these contracts as a web interface, and just to prove that it works, and then ask that the block producers deploy these contracts in the EOSIO namespace so people know that they're trusted and vetted and officially supported by the network. And I think that that's broad utility that dramatically enhances everything in the EOS network. It has nothing to do with any of the complex governance or inflation issues that we haven't gotten to. And that was the first piece of funding that we asked for. And $1.5 million, or it's less now because it's denominated in EOS, but 700,000 EOS to build not just the smart contracts, but the basic UI for interfacing to them. And then I think that's huge. Now there's some downstream effects. How do we get backward compatibility? The existing EOS token contract would be unmodified. We'd have a token bridge contract that would allow you to bridge anyone to bridge any existing token into the new token standard with a one-to-one mint bridge that's completely trustless. And the EOS token would then have a bridge like that. And so if you want EOS under the new standard, you go through here. This is the same approach Ethereum does to take ETH, which the native ETH is not the same as an ERC20, and they map it into the ERC20 standard. And we do the exact same thing. Now, it gets tricky when a user wants to send to an exchange, right? And they've got new EOS, and they want to convert it through the token bridge into old EOS. and then send it to the exchange, or the exchange wants to send it to them, in which case they need to get their 64-bit name and give that to the exchange for the withdrawal, because the exchange might not upgrade. But we give the exchanges the instructions, hey, if you want to support the new longer usernames, you can, and this is the transaction you can do so. And as far as trusting API servers, you can always have an assert action that will assert that this long name maps to this short name. So you don't have to trust the API. You can have it verified right in the transaction if you don't trust your data source. And it's optional. If you've already vetted it once, you've got some kind of Merkle proof that proves that's the mapping, then you don't need to assert it. But yeah, that's the whole picture for the DeFi part of what I'm proposing.